Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, Louis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Louis Bright Raven, 33-year veteran of comic science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And with me is the 18-year veteran, Dr. Meh.
I'm the one that called Dr. Meh good. I'm the one that makes you feel, oh, man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chris Hall, everybody. Yeah. You do better lyrics on your other things, but we'll talk about that some other time, I guess. But anyway, it's Thursday, July 3rd. You're going to hear some booms on both of our background audio because everybody thinks it's time to blow up shit because it's the 4th of July dates, and I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
I don't see what there's much good to be celebrating right now, but that's beside the point.
Nope. But they say make sure to leave cookies, milk, and an American Eagle out for Kurt Angle when he comes by the house tonight.
Yes. Yeah, of course, you'd probably get more like I don't know, Clingy Chad Gable or something instead, or we get John Cena as Peacemaker with his eagle eye.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, America, man.
I do everything you can do, just better.
Yes. All right. So anyway, we got. It turned out that this week we didn't get anything at the stores, so I looked back in the vault at stuff that I had bought through crowdfunding that I hadn't reviewed, and so I found some stuff, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll review that." And I realized that there was a bunch of stuff from one series I hadn't reviewed at all for a long, long time. So we're going to get with that and get caught up on that first. And it's not going to show me, of course. Why would it show, right?
Yeah. Well, see, we've got some bad news because of Diamond, going down, and books not being available. Raven only has enough material in his personal library to do about 700 more shows.
Maybe. Anyway, Impossible Team Up A, Impossible Jones or Imp Jones, and Holly Days One Shot. Publisher Panic Button Press, writer Carl Kiesel, penciler David Hahn, inker Carl Kiesel, colored by Tony Avina, lettering by Richard Starkey, and comic crafts Tyler Smith, with a cover by Dan Jurgens and Carl Kiesel. Genre superhero, released October 2021. I think I reviewed this before, but I couldn't find the actual post, so we'll just do it again. Impossible Jones and Holly Days, both criminals, though Imp pretends to be a superhero because she was once mistaken for one, are at Club Cosplay, where they meet an Imp Jones fan and Lunkhead cosplayer. Imp swipes the wallet of Lunkhead after telling him to take a hike and uses the money to buy her and Holly some drinks. Unfortunately, this is, of course, where the detective Anjani Bright Raven, yes, that's my cousin from that dimension, wink, wink, and yes, Carl, and I was honored to have my name used, is introduced. Sadly, the circumstances of their meeting are not good. The other Impossible Jones cosplayer was killed later that night, and now Imp is determined to find the killer. What did I think? This is sort of a retro review. I know I reviewed this when it originally came out, and I know I gave it a high rating, and not just because my namesake was in it. But I couldn't find a review in my archives, so after a quick reread, does it still hold up? Absolutely it does. The plot of the story with the murder mystery and who the actual killer is, while somewhat predictable, is all well executed, and we get a lot of good backstory on Holly, as it's just a good old-fashioned modern Bronze Age style comic. In other words, that late 80s, early 90s feel. It hits the wheelhouse it should. Han's art is very clean. The colors of that are of that late 80s, early 90s styles where you get the vibrant color palettes that aren't over-rendered. There's clear lighting sources, just solid grade A work. The way comics should be done. This was a very pleasing reread. I don't remember what I gave it originally. I'm suspecting 4.5 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, and I'm going to give that the same grade now. Give me a second here. I got get the book out of where it was. I thought I had it loose. Yeah, I did not have time to scan and show art on these, unfortunately.
Yeah. So go and read this book. All right, and Genie Bright Raven is gonna come and give you the permanent nevermore with a baseball bat.
Yeah. So anyway, here's this is just one of the covers. This is the cover I liked by Dan Jurgens. This was
Fantastic cover. Yeah, I like that one.
And there's the interior art. Of course, they had little chibi designs you could get as well.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
And there's the dork that's like hitting on them. And she has small chest, but then she like inflates her chest because she can do that.
That's fantastic.
And you can see the other cosplayer in the background that's just like her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This looks like a great book.
Yeah. Basically, she tells him to take a hike, steals his wallet out of his thing, and like she's basically protecting the other cosplayer. And later, of course, we find out that cosplayer has been murdered. And we know who did it, obviously. But right. Now, the one that's copper with the NHPD, New Hope Police Department, that is Officer Detective Bright Raven.
Okay.
Like I said, that's my cousin.
And Genie Bright Raven, yeah.
Yep. And of course, she goes to find out about the imposter who was killed at the police station, and they think, "Whoa, what's going on?" They think that they're going to arrest her as a suspect, and she's like, "Like hell you are." And they're like, "No, wait, that's not what I meant to do. We want you here to help, not, that was a mistake."
Who does the interior art on this?
David Hahn.
This is fantastic stuff, man. This is like almost in my eye, almost kind of a mix between Jurgens and like Bruce Timm.
Mm-hmm. And then that's where Detective Bright Raven and him first meet officially.
Whoa. Just me. Okay, all right. I thought Hazel was opening the door. No, okay. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, but so there's lots of cool stuff going on here. Holly thinks it's her ex-boss, Krampus, who killed the girl and takes her back to an old hideout. But nothing looks like anyone's even been there. There's so much dust, as you can see. So she's like, "No, it wasn't him," But they figure it out, and different people. And here's a cool thing: she's squeezing underneath the door.
That's awesome.
So they just do a lot of cool stuff in this. And then there's another story, secondary story called Even Steven. And Even Steven is kind of like this cross between The Question and Rorschach. But his power is whatever your abilities are, he will match you equally, somehow, mystically, and beat you, Steven.
So kind of like Taskmaster.
I wouldn't say that, because Taskmaster can do all the different things at once and have multiple different people and still cheats. He does exactly what you do, only what you do one-on-one.
I gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah. Oops, there's. So that's that one. We got lots of them to go, though. That was just like the early stuff. Let's go on to the next one. This is Impossible Jones team up B, Impossible Jones and Captain Lightning, as you can see on the Lightning, and they're up against members of Section Zero, which is another cool Carl Kiesel series that's done with Tom Grummett art. Same publisher, same creative team, released May 2022, or May of 2022. There we go. I'll get it out. What it's about. After stopping a criminal heist by the bearded lady in her freak show, Impossible Jones gets recruited by Captain Lightning, also known as Crapton Lightning, as I call him.
I was going to say Crapton Lightning. Yeah.
Well, no, he's kind of a jerk character. That's why I say that. But anyway, she's recruited to safeguard a special elemental rock called the Power Agate from the legendary urban legend group Section Zero. Jones is skeptical of Lightning, whom she believes is on her foe superhero, really a criminal activity person. But she realizes that she can steal the rock for herself and have Section Zero get blamed for it, so she agrees with his plan. She changes her costume to a stealth mode black instead of her yellow attire that you see on the cover here, and knocks out the guards and obtains the rocks. Only have two of the members of the Section Zero team, Tom Talisi, also known as the 24-Hour Bug, who she's fighting against on the front cover, and Reagan Atomic, who was on the back cover, I'll show you in a second, appear and take the rock from her, or so they think. What she really did was shrink so small that she hides inside a pit on the rock itself. That's pretty wild, isn't it?
That's clever, man. Yeah.
The duo are about to make their leave when Captain Lightning appears, and they start to fight. And so she expands back out of the rock and hits Tom. As the fight ensues, Imp manages to overpower the Section Zero team and obtains the rock, but Captain Lightning then insists on taking the rock to a facility to be used as a power source for the city. And Jones realizes that Lightning has his own not-so-kosher agenda and drops the rock into a nearby cauldron where it sinks into the waterways, seemingly lost forever. Lightning rants about it, but Jones cuts him to the quick with a retort that he's not the only one who cares about the city. Then we find out about the power agate falls into the hands of another villain below ground. What will happen in the next issue? Then, of course, there are two separate Even Steven backup stories where they tell the secret origins, or are they, of Even Steven. The Devil You Say by Mark Waid and artist Dan Shockey, colors Batonia Vina, Allering Starking, and Ethan Smith. FBI agent Margot Lamont finds journalist Harry Amindev at a crime scene involving the vigilante Even Steven. They're having a conversation when apparently Amindev had told her he would give her the origins of Steven. He explains to her that Steven was a private investigator who crashed into a demonic seance where a demon was about to give another their wish when he landed inside the pentagram, and the demon of balance, Adrastia, grants him mystical abilities, but he can only have an exact equal balance against his foes, under the belief that all things being equal, good always triumphs over evil. Should he fail even once, his soul is forfeit. Whether the story is true or not is impossible to tell because the person called Amindev doesn't seem to be available. Plus, all the mysticism is something that Lamont doesn't really buy into. She's clearly suspicious of Amindev and probably thinks he's Even Steven's civilian persona, but there's no evidence of that, so he takes his leave and says they'll meet again. The next story is The Split. Kurt Busiek writes this one with the same artist, Dan Schneckby. And what it's about. Lamont goes to another part of town to meet another source to learn more about Even Steven. She meets with the next con named Doyle, who tells a story about Even Steven, who had a twin brother and his kid, and then as they grew up, the older brother was evil and made Steven take the rap for things. But one time, Steven refused to, and his brother got sentenced to a major term while Steven got a much lighter sentence. But Steven is odd. He has albino skin and white hair and red eyes. And Doyle says he may have been affected by experimental drugs in the womb. Anyway, Steven learns that his brother was killed by other prisoners in the maximum prison. He freaks out, and his power kicks in. He becomes Even Steven for the first time and disappears from his prison cell and goes to get vengeance for his brother. Lamont checks into this and thinks it's solid, but Amanda corrects her and says he checked that story too. And it turns out that Steven never had a twin brother, so the secret is still out there. I thought this was so nice to see members of Section Zero. It's been far too long since they came out with the materials. The cover was done by Tom Grummett, of course. All the stories are well done. I think Kiesel goes a tiny smidge overboard with the bad puns and jokes in the Imp and Lightning story, but it's written in such a manner that it's clear that's what he's doing, and he's doing it on purpose. Now he's aware he's laying the bad jokes on a little thick and taking it to the very cusp of breaking your audience's patience. Like you said, David Hahn's arc, very nice. I really enjoy the characters in this. Criminals Joan Stops. I'm going to show you that in just a moment.
So is Jones a stretchy person, or is there something else going on with her?
She's a shapeshifter.
Okay.
But she can stretch. She can do all those things too. I'm just trying to find the right book here. There's so many books. Okay.
Yeah. This art is really refreshing.
Yeah. I'm looking for D. That's that one. What did I do with it? That's weird. Okay. I might not show the ones from this particular issue. Might be over the other stack. I'll show you some other stuff as well. But anyway, a lot of this stuff, there were puns about Section Zero and the Perhapanauts in the book. You should pick up the haps and stuff. But the reason the haps were put in there was because this book, Impossible Jones, was also taken over and put it at Scout Comics after they did the crowdfunding. The two Even Stevens stories were also well done. I am not a fan of Mark Waid. I think everybody knows that. The story worked just fine for me. I do prefer Kurt Busiek's story, but both plots and versions of Even Stevens' origins were well done. And it will be interesting to see where the next installments lead in the next one-shot book. Of course, I didn't know if or when these stories were going to appear in Scout Edition when they first came out. They only, at the time this was originally written, Scott had only reprinted the original miniseries. But the book continues to be a really fun concept, and I wish you guys would check it out more. I do find the cuss words always being blocked out in places to be weird, but he's consistent in doing it. So if that's how he wants to handle the use of profanity in the book to keep it viable, who am I to tell him no, right?
Right.
So the next one is Imp Jones and Polecat. Same team, but a different colorist this time. Ryan Cody took over for colors. And the lettering is also by Comic Crafts' Jimmy Betancourt instead of Tyler. This cover is by Stuart Immonen, released February 2023. In this story, Impy is paired with the hero Polecat, who appears to be crushing on her, which is not a good thing for a criminal who's posing as a superhero and who is trying to keep both of her criminal and superhero credentials and reputations intact and in good standing, and keep her friendship with Holly Days intact as well. The duo end up on a stakeout and come across a con duo who haunt businesses trying to shake them down for money to remove the ghosts, while we learn about Polecat's past and a little more about imps as well as their lost ghosts, in other words, cherished relationships. And there are two more Even Steven origin stories, one by Gail Simone and Han Kiesel. They do Cheerful Symmetry, where the same reporter interviews another prison inmate who tells another possible origin for Even Steven. And then there's The Long Con by Alex Segura and Dan Schnocki, I guess, with colors by Ellie Wright, with yet another version of Even Steven's origins. You were going to say something, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, shaking people down to remove ghosts, I was going to say, and we would have gotten away with it too. It wasn't for you darn kids.
Yeah. Okay, the Imp Jones Polecat story was just charming. There's great flashback sequences, really sharp characterization. I feel had this been done back in the early 90s at the time of Image's launch, it would have been like an explosive book on the scene. Unfortunately, these days it seems like it's just totally ignored, and that's more criminal than anything that Impy would ever do on her most evil day. The Gail Simone story was all right. Again, like Wade, I'm not a fan of her writing. But this felt a little bit too much of her recycling Rorschach from Watchmen to me. The other story by Alex Segura and Dan Scotti was more unique and original and engaging overall, in my opinion. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. If I'm being honest, the Imp stories have all been 5 stars. It's the Even Stevens that are knocking the grade down a peg, and it's because it's not by Carl Kiesel. That's pretty much the gist, you know. But, you know, their stories aren't bad, but they're just not quite as good as Carl's, you know.
Right.
Okay, let's go ahead and take another look. Here's the book C with the short imminent cover. There's one of the ghosts that's haunting people and chasing them out of their business.
And is that a Stan Lee caricature?
It could be. I don't think it was planned to be, but it could be.
It kind of looks like it to me.
Yeah. But, you know, she's basically, you know, chasing him off, and then the fake. Those two are partners. The guy who's like supposed to be the ghost buster there with his little thing, and the ghost is actually like a person who can, like Kitty Pryde, can go intangible.
Oh, okay, cool.
But yeah, she's like going to visit people and stuff, and there's a fight because Polecat's beating up Holidays while Holly's like got her boyfriend's there. It's like, she's like, "Oh, thanks a lot, buddy. You ruined my night. Here, have some jingle bells and let me dump some garland on you while I get out of here." You know, it's just funny, you know.
Right.
And she's stealing some like Christmas themed things, like a Christmas Fabergé egg there that she's got there, the silver
Fabergé.
Yeah. And she's like, "Yeah, okay. I'm not going to jail, but you can take the egg and stuff." Like, I gotta take you to jail, because if I don't take you to jail, they're gonna realize that I'm a thief. And so he comes busting through. Well, now I can make it look like she just got away on her own.
There you go.
And so she like takes her fist and turns it into a giant fly swatter. So it's kind of cool. And then they're talking and stuff, and it starts going back into him talking about his past, and it's an interesting thing because they have a new character that was his partner called the Hellhound. As you can see, it says bark and bite on her face.
Ah, I see.
And it turns out that Hellhound's husband was controlled by the mob, and she was trying to find a way to get him out of the mob, more or less. And they were stopping all of the stuff that he was in control of. Polecat and Hellhound were breaking it up, and the boss figured it out and figured that he was on the take, so he kills her husband in front of her.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and so and so she's like really bitter and resentful, and she has her own issues, and of course they stop being partners and stuff. And then, but they're asked to go find these ghosts, and see, now there's a whole new costume for the intangible person, and they're going to find out what's going on. But they figure it out. It's not that hard. But
I think I should really get this book.
Yeah, these are really fun books. And so she confronts the boss later when she finds out what happened, because she had, as a thief before she became Impossible Jones, she had her own dealings with the guy that killed Polecat, or he thought that killed the husband of the other one, and is trying to get this, like, yeah, you're going to face justice for this type thing, you know. So it's a cool thing. And then they do the Even Steven stories, again, another storyline where he's in jail, and he was supposed to, he's just this pale white Rorschach guy that doesn't really do anything, doesn't bother anybody, minds his own business, until they start talking about his history again. And he's been bullied by other people, and they bullied him and almost beat him to death. And they put some sort of injection in him to try and revive him, and instead it built another. Can you see the yellow syringe in his hand?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like match and match. And the next one is like his father's beating his mother, so he comes up with his own and beats his dad.
Oh, okay.
Little things like that. So ultimately, does the story sound true? But here come all the thugs that are going to kill him in prison. I don't know if you guys can see this, but he's like growing extra arms and weapons.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
So, yeah, he has a lot of weird abilities that way. So that's what that story was for Gale. And then the next one was another origin story that may or may not be true. So they just don't really know what the real truth is about the character yet. But yeah, I go ahead and give that one a 4.5 out of 5 as well. So the next one is American Team Up D with American Angel. American Angel is an interesting character. We find out that Leica, who was Hellhound, Polecat's ex-partner from the last story, and is still alive. We thought she'd been killed in an explosion, but she had left New Hope City after the events of the last story, and had asked Polecat to leave with her, but he couldn't because that's his hometown and stuff. So she went into the military, and something happened terrible, and she ended up becoming kind of a cybernetic entity, the American Angel. Months, maybe years have passed in the meantime, and she's wearing that cyber armor, and she arrives to help Imp and Polecat against an overpowered Krampus who has kidnapped the new Persephone and has a power stone giving him immense abilities. Are they enough to stop him, or will Even Steven need to get involved? Plus 2 more Even Steven backup stories. And I'm going to ask, why is this series not getting more airplay and discussion? This is so much better than the crap that Jeff Johns and Mark Miller are producing. Again, this is the classic Bronze Age comics type feel, but modernized. And I'm very frustrated. And I apologize to Carl for not talking about it more frequently myself. I've been sitting on it for ages, like I said, because I took that 2-year absence. But getting, coming back to these, and I'm like, damn, where was the talk about this book? Why? Where's the love? It needed to be there. This is why I get mad at comics tubers like Whiny West and you Jackass Zach and Stinky Goose and Pearl Clutcher Perch and the rest of that ilk. I was like, how come nobody's talking about Ghost Machine or Miller Roll books? Here we are to talk about the very best comics in the whole wide world this week. When the hell did Wes ever talk about this series? I sure as hell never heard of him or any of his other aficionados ever mention it. This is a series that deserves to be cited as among the best in the world. I'm going to give this one a 5-star.
Woohoo!
Mostly because it's like all these characters are from the previous episode or issues are all coming into the story at once and having a kind of a concluding arc at the same time.
And I'm going to give 5 stars to Aficionados.
Okay. There's the cover. Has that nice, shiny, reflective gloss. This is where Polecat finds out that she's alive. And she asks him to leave the city, but he won't. So she disappeared. And then years later, she finds out there's a problem and she has to go back. And what they don't know is that she has no legs. You don't see it going off. But, they're just, they're still talking about that whole back history. And all of a sudden, we're going to talk about fighting Krampus some more, But it was pretty cool. She goes back home. She's taking a shower. Tastefully done. There's no boob showing. Nothing. She gets
Not even side boob. Oh, okay. There's front half boob though.
Kind of, sort of. But she gets interrupted by the person who knows who she is and how she got her powers. And you see that dark shade behind her.
Yeah.
That's like a demonic entity inside of her.
Oh, wow.
And is like can do stuff separately from her without her knowing. So there's a whole other angle to her. So she's like kind of like trying to pull a what's the word, a blackmail type scheme on her, but she's like, no, that's probably not going to work. But anyway, she's out helping Captain Lightning or some other trying to figure out what's going on with one of these people who got killed or stuff stolen. And she's investigating, and she ends up stealing something from that person herself, and she hid it inside of her tummy.
Well, that's a convenient hiding place.
Yep. So she goes back to the hideout from before that Holly showed her of Krampus's, and that's where they find out he's kidnapped Persephone. Stolen her powers.
Oh no.
And oops. Yeah. And oh, by the way, that's where I mean by he does blocks of all the swear words. You know what they are.
I think that's kind of clever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But now it's like super powered Krampus against Impossible Jones. Uh-oh. He looks like a kind of a Christmas Doctor Doom with red eyes.
A little bit, yeah.
And of course, he's got this power whip. And she's like, oh, crap. I could have bullets bounce off of me, but that's going to tear me up for some reason, you know. And it does, actually. She knows it. So Persephone grabs her like she's going to hold her in place. And he goes to whip her. And instead, they both duck. And he cuts her bonds, and now they're both free. And she's fleeing, and look at the stretch flea.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really well drawn. And then, of course, they have an explosion of the building, and she gets, like, blown sky high. And it looks like it looks so much like a Mr. Fantastic blown sky high, doesn't it?
Right? Absolutely.
So, you know, it's cool, though. They explain how and when Persephone got kidnapped and how he stole her power while they're going back. Polecat wakes her up, and as you can see, she's kind of like so much like a. Here, let me do this. There. She's like bent over a mailbox or something on the side of the street.
Yeah.
It looks funny, but you know. I just like how he draws that sort of stuff. But now Captain Lightning is in the thing, and so is Polecat, and so the others. And it's like they're all going after Krampus now. But Krampus is so powerful, he actually like pokes a hole through Captain Lightning, and she has to race into the hospital. And as you can see, she's kind of like holding him. Binding
right.
Try to keep the blood from going out. And so he's being treated, and she's like, I gotta go back, but how do we stop this guy? Type thing. And that's when they call Polecat's ex-girlfriend. And she's involved, and it just gets bigger and bigger in the battle. So and then, of course, here comes even Steven. Like, you know.
That's very cool. So they're building up to like a whole like Justice League team.
Justice League or Avengers, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a problem. The power that even Steven has, it always has to be him alone. It has to be a fair fight equal. right?
Right.
Well, they teamed up on him. And so now he's like, oh, crap. You just ruined it for me. And you see he's like shrinking.
Right.
He disappears. And he's like an explosion. And he's like, look what's on the ground.
That's cool.
And he's gone. And we don't know if he's like, did that mean, did he get absorbed and go to hell or not? We don't know. Because they don't know the secret history of him. So it's like, ooh, wild stuff. But that didn't stop Krampus. He still had more power. So now it's them tearing him up some more. So finally, Holly gets involved because Holly was his sidekick. And she's like, nope, I'm just going to blow you up. Yeah. So anyway, cool stuff. They got some cool pinups in the background.
Oh yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so I'm just really enjoyed the whole thing, and fun to read. So that's number D, and then we'll finish off this group with Impossible Jones Naughty or Nice one shot. $4 or $4.99 from Scout Comics. The regular team, Carl and David, with Tony Avina and Ryan Cody on colors. Tyler Smith was doing the lettering, I think. Let me check real sure. Make absolutely positive on that. I could be mistaken. It just says Comic Craft Letters, so it could be Tyler or the other one. But anyway, not covered by Dan Jurgens. That is actually the Han cover. It was released November 22. It's Christmas time in New Hope City, and there's a heat wave. What's a girl like Holly Day supposed to do? Set up a heist and a bomb threat to the city and trick her friend Impossible Jones and try and stop her, of course. Only when the other heroes of Hope City get involved, things are never what they seem. Closing out my Impossible Jones reading session for this was a really nice breather. The seriousness and tragedy of some of the backstories of these characters that make them all the more compelling, it gets a little bit heartbreaking, I guess. Just sad.
Heavy.
So it's like, yeah, this didn't have that. This was just all kind of fun and game type shenanigans. So it's a nice palate cleanser to just have a nice, easygoing, fun tale. Of course, they did pre-print 2 for story arcs for the mass market. Go check it out. Find it in the back issue boxes. Go support David and Carl and the crew. The Kieselverse is one of the strongest creator-owned universes comics has going right now. I'll give it a 5-star out of 5. The cover really has nothing to do with the story, although it's funny because they're all naughty, nice kiss, $1, naughty, $5, and they're all $5 bills, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. So, it's like, yeah. But, what she does, though, is there's a bomb. And this is like Demolition, who has, exploding powers, antimatter touch. But she has to keep fighting him as well. But the main thing is she steals the bomb from Holly. And she's like, what do I do with this bomb? It's the whole Batman, what do you do with a bomb routine. And finally, she's like, well, come on, turn it off. We don't have to do this. And she's like, oh, no, fine, no problem. I'm just going to shove you off the roof to your death. Well, she's just bounced off the roof, off the floor. It's not like it's going to matter. But the bomb might go off, and that's right down to the people. So she has to reach up and rebound herself with her arm, go back up, and throw the bomb into the sky. And it goes off. And it starts snowing. And that was the whole point, was to make it snow.
Aw, that's sweet.
But in the meantime, because they had all this distraction going on, they stole these other trinkets that were like these valuable puppets for classic TV show, which was something that she was planning on stealing herself.
Okay.
So as it turns out, of course, Captain Lightning suspects her of this, but there's nothing to prove it because Captain Lightning doesn't like her for some reason. I don't trust you. You're a thief or something. I don't know. But in the end, she gets one of the puppets for herself. Holly gives her a present.
Well, that's cool.
And then they have the Even Steven story, because you always got to have an Even Steven story going on. Christmas with Even Steven. And he beats this guy that's like super tall, growth guy. You can see kind of like big in the.
Okay.
And of course, Detective Bright Raven's there to congratulate him for defeating. And one of the other cops is like, "Oh, there's a present here for you, Stephen." From who? Didn't say. Well, how do I give back? I don't know who to give it back to because I have to do something equal or I'm going to be in trouble. So he goes and finds Impossible Jones and asks her, "Tell me who did this. You're the one who could do the impossible." "That's just my moniker. I can't do the impossible." But you can't lie. Only thieves, criminals lie. You have to be able to do the impossible. So ultimately, she sells them that basically just pay it forward. You don't need to know who it was that gave it to you. You just give it to someone randomly. Like they probably give it to you randomly. He's like, "That's brilliant. Here." So it's like, okay. And then he talked about some of her powers, like how he could track her by knowing her. He goes, "I can track people by their intent of evil or good, but you're really hard to track because you're like both. Sometimes I can't find you. You're interesting." So kind of cool. So anyway, she never opens it to find out what it is, but it was kind of cool. So that one was a cool little story as well.
Yeah, great little story.
Alrighty, our next one. Oh, by the way, there is one more Impossible Jones that has to come out that just came out, and I just didn't get to it. So we'll review that one. I think next week I'll explain a little bit. But if you were digging these, wait till you see what they come up with next. Hey now. Big girls don't cry.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that. Hey now.
No.
The dream is over.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the next book is Joe Frankenstein III, The Eye of Ra. Publisher Compass Comics. Writers Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan. Artist is Anthony Gonzalez Clark with lettering by Carlos M. Manuel. Cover here is Graham Nolan. There we go. And Anthony Gonzalez Clark is the other cover. Action adventure released July 2025. What it's about. In 1927, Joe's great-great-grandfather, Frederick Frankenstein, along with Mr. Lazarus, the Frankenstein monster, are in search of the powerful Eye of Ra, a staff that was used to vanquish a vampire infestation by the ancient Egyptians. History and the world is doomed if they cannot repeat this feat in time. But is the price too high to pay if it means reviving the evil Lord Golgotha? Nolan and Dixon know what they're doing and what audience they want to serve. It's a perfect blend of tapping into the Johnny Quest and Indiana Jones fan base while maintaining their own Frankenstein monster as a hero theme for the series. I do, however, wish that Nolan had drawn this series well, because while there's nothing wrong with Anthony Gonzalez Clark art, it just feels a little bit too modern in style for me, and I much prefer this style of art that you're seeing here, because it harkens more back to the tone with the obvious influences at play here. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. And this is some of the interior art.
I can see what you mean. Too modern.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great art.
Yes, exactly. But it's not. I don't know. I just would like to have seen it done in a more classic, traditional style.
Right.
a better word, but it was well done. I have no problem with what was done. It was well done. Next, we have Pistol Shrimp 1 through 3 by King Brilliant Comics. Writer Charlie McFarlane, artist Luis Morocco, colors by Antonio Ramos Wong, and lettering by Buddy Bedoin. Anyway, covered by Luis Morocco. Genre is anthropomorphic Western. Released originally in December 2023, and the most recent issue, number 3, came out just July 1st of this year. So, like 2 days ago. Got it. What it's about. In this underwater comedy Western, the titular Pistol Shrimp is a gunslinging do-gooder trying to find his lost wife, Carolyn, after a horrific event separates them. They got dumped out of a tank in a restaurant into the ocean after a kid sneezed into the tank. Now, amidst the wild outbacks of the blue seas, can our intrepid hero serve justice and receive his own by reuniting with his lost love, or will the creatures of the deep, or worse, human hands, dash the hopes against the cold coral reefs of despair? This was fun. McFarlane has a good writing style. The art by Morocco is just the right flavor of design and humor. The colors are solid. The concept is hilarious. The shrimp are in a restaurant tank, watching his other fish and other sea life are being taken out to be cooked, and the kid sneezes in the tank. So miraculously, this woman that works there just picks up like this 30-gallon tank of everything and just walks outside to the pier and dumps it all out into the ocean. Really? First off, I've never worked in a seafood restaurant before, but that seemed like a crazy scenario. But really, you're this scrawny ass woman just takes the whole tank and just walks off with it.
30 gallons of water. Yeah.
It's like, ooh, but it's hilarious. So now, a whole whopping 2 human days later, they specify 2 human days. Our hero is now like Flint Shrimpwood, the shrimp of the missing wife, gun-toting, seahorse riding badass of the seas. You best not cross his shellfish, or you won't be sleeping with the fishies. They be eating your corpse, you hear? Really, here's another book that really should be getting a lot more attention than it has. I never heard of it before. I just came across it on the campaign for issue number 3. And it does have a sort of Western gunslinging action vibe. So there is some blood and violence. And the creators do say ages 13 up. But I think that I understand how they think that way. But I think a 10 to 12-year-old can still be fine with it. It's like taking SpongeBob into an Old West scenario and just being a little bit more gritty and old school spaghetti Western in tone. The art and characters are great. Morocco is really good at the character designs, different facial features for different characters. He knows how to make the characters emote, and that's very important. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to keep reading it as it progresses. I give it a 4.5. Let's take a quick look at that. Here's the first issue, signed by Charlie, of course. There they are in fresh seafood tank. Now, look how big this tank looks.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. And so they take the fish away, and the fishes are screaming, "Oh my God, they got Charlie!" Or no, they got Richard. Pardon me. Why are you taking it away? And they got their own little homestead inside the fish tank, and he's talking about his wife who's pregnant with his kid. And he's like, we'll make it work somehow. We'll survive this, And the kid sneezes. Now that's a hell of a sneeze.
That it is.
But now that happens. Now look at this. I'm just going to walk away with this. And because they're walking away and they're tipped, they get separated. And of course, she's taking them out and throwing them out into the ocean. Just the whole tank and everything. Don't just dump the tank. No, we're just going to throw a whole tank in the water. So anyway, everything's gone black. He wakes up, and he's somewhere in the ocean, and his wife's missing, and he has to go find her. 2 days later, human time.
2 days later.
Now we have the shark mob. they're going to hustle the octopus, who's the bartender. And here's this little shrimp coming through the doors. There's this little shrimp. And he's like, so they start just shooting at him. He's like, he taps the table, and they're shooting low. He's like, well, you should have aimed higher. Huh? Somehow he jumped all the way up to there and blew them all away.
Well, it's a little known shrimp ability. They can jump.
Yes. But it's hilarious. So he asked the octopus, where's my woman? I don't know. Oh, mom, maybe she was taken. I think I saw her a couple days ago, type thing. Okay, don't shoot me. So he leaves, and he's gonna go get on a seahorse, and somebody dropped an anchor on this other fish, and he's like, "All right, I'll go help you." And he's like, "Look how big the fish is compared to this little shrimpy guy." Right? So he's stuck under the anchor. So he sits it up, and they pull him off the anchor, and he goes flying away. Whee! Oh, there's a problem. That anchor was a little heavy. Let me see if it shows it. Oh, I missed it.
Oh, shoot.
That's about what he says too. Uh-oh. But anyway, he was told that there was this like weird cult that got his girl, supposedly. So he's hunting after the cult. And so he's trying to save the woman that he thinks is his wife from this cult. He goes after him. But it's, and he's like hunting them all down, just shooting everybody away. And it turns out it's not his wife. He looks nothing like his wife.
Nope.
So, the octopus just either lied or was just like trying to come up with something to get rid of him. So the next, it's one issue after another of this, and it's beautiful stuff. I love it. So yeah, that's the fun part of that. You got a phone call?
I just had to answer Angie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, I give it 4.5. I'm enjoying it tremendously. And that's pretty much all we got for review tonight, because I didn't get a chance to finish The Impossible Jones, and I didn't get to Settle, which is the other Western comic that I was going to review this week because I just didn't have time. But that means that now I was going to say next week we would do shows, but then I realized I have an event next Thursday, family event that I have to be taking care of, and I won't be able to be on next week. So 2 weeks, sorry, all you Impossible Jones fans, we'll be back with reviewing Settle, and then Impossible Jones, Impossible to Love, the prelude, which is the next one. There's other books that are supposed to be coming out over the next week or so that hopefully we'll get to. And that what we plan to read is Gotham by Gaslight League for Justice, The Slasher's Apprentice #3, the new Toxic Avengers series from Ahoy Comics, buried long ago. That's supposed to be #3, I believe, but we haven't reviewed #2, so we'll also review #2. and Dark Regards. And that's pretty much it for 2 weeks. And that'll be what Chris and I are going to be doing. So that is all we got for this week. And Chris just had to jump for family thing for him real quick. And we're heading out anyway. So with that being said, thank you for watching. And this weekend, people are asking, no show tomorrow because it's 4th of July. There's going to be too much fireworks noise to do a live podcast. So we'll return on Friday, July 11th with Hellboy the Crooked Man. But this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we will have live draw and art for sale to support the channel and myself. Times to be are yet to be officially determined, but likely in the afternoon, early evening, Eastern Standard Time. And that is all for the show this week. So if you want to reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter X, the Muskrat channel at Lewis Brightrave 2. You've been watching Quoth Raven, Lewis Brightraven exclusively on YouTube. If you want to see more of my artwork, deviantart.com/brightraven is the place to be. And if you want to email me, quothravenlbr72@gmail.com or lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. And since Chris bounced, I don't know exactly who is on this week. I can't remember. But if you go to Glass House Throwing Stones on YouTube, Glass House Studios Throwing Stones, this Saturday, they will have a guest creator that I believe that would be cool to watch. So there you go. There you have it. So we'll see you next time. Quoth the Raven. Nevermore.